Welcome back to the new Laty's garage. It has been a while since I've done a video, and we'll get stuck into putting that SS motor back together today, but I thought, well, I've moved, massive job, so I'd show you around a bit the new garage, or the new shed, and show you around a bit. Got a place with a few more sheds, a bit more storage, so I can get more stuff done. But yeah, it's taken a fair while to settle in, so yeah, I'll show you around a bit. This is probably where the magic's going to happen, you could say. I've set it up this time so both the cars fit in there, the tonner and the SS. Yeah, after I pull that tonner out, we'll have a bit of a look around. So I think that's about 10 metres by 10 metres, that shed. And then I've got another shed up in the corner there. That fits a lot of the camping gear and the moulds and stuff. Not really much to see inside there. Kids trampoline and stuff. Got this big carport where the Tig sits under cover there, and the wife's car sits here. So definitely a lot more shed space, and then I'll quickly whip up to the back and I'll show you the back shed too. Alright, pretty bright out here, but made our way up the back to the back shed. I'll show you around. Sort of no driveway at the back here, so I've actually made the workshop at the front because it would just be too hard to try and get these cars up and down this grass and up into this ramp, so I'll show you a bit around up here. So you got to come up the side here to get to this back shed. It's probably not worth it. Just use this back shed for storage. You've got the swimming hole with an outdoor area. This is the shed or garage. Got the old crash tonner out there. The factory 6-speed one that I had, crashed it. That's why I built the new one, turbo. This used to be cammed up. Used to be pretty angry. Got side swapped and pushed off the road. Anyway, I'll keep that because I need some wiring and stuff out of that car for another project that you haven't seen yet, but you'll get a glimpse. So we'll go into the shed. This is just helping me out heaps, the size of this shed. I can fit all my bikes in here, my bikes, the kids' bikes, fit the Navara in here, all the car parts, all the exhaust, the bonnets, all up in there, all the bumpers, and yeah, there's a sneaky little project that I used to have stored at a mate's house. It was actually the first tonner I ever bought, and it's a long-term project. It's been stripped out, smoothed out, roll cage, racing seats, 9-inch diff, anti-roll bars, Avco shocks, split mono leaf springs, sliders, chrome ollie bars, stuff like that. We'll go into more of that later, like a lot later. Yeah, a lot of the parts. Don't know why it's not focusing. There you go. Yeah, heaps of storage, keep all my bits in, keep all the bikes in. Makes my life a lot easier, that's for sure. But yeah, we'll head back out the front and pull the tonner out and get working on this engine. I suppose I'll give you some sort of audio stimulation to this probably mega boring video, so pull that tonner out. It's like Tetris in there, getting stuff in and out, but at least they both fit. Okay, this is the shed. So we're going to do work from now on. Took me a fair bit to get it all sorted. I like everything to be sorted before I start doing work again. Just makes life a lot easier. You know, getting a decent workbench set up, some shelving across the back. You know, fitting all the engines and the welders and all the bits in, and fitting both cars in was a little bit of a logistical nightmare, but I think it's actually worked out alright. One of the biggest downfalls of this shed would have to be no concrete out here, so it does drag a bit of stuff in every now and again, but yeah, toolbox is there for the time being until all those parts out of the SS go back in. They're on a couple of tables out the back here. The SS is still chilling, loving life with its hideous wheels. We'll change them. There's the engine that we're going to be working on today. my welders, MIG and TIG, another couple of LS motors, little turbo 400 in there that's going to be going in the SS, and yeah, it's cameras, it's sensitive. So, drill press, shells, it's all here. It's all you need. You don't have to have the biggest and fanciest to get the job done. So, we'll get stuck into it. I have already got parts. I've got my LS7 lifters in sandwich bags of engine oil soaking. And you could just put them in a container, but I find in a sandwich bag you can move them around and roll them around, and it helps get some of the air bubbles out so they fill right full of engine oil, which is what you want before they go in. Got a whole heap of stuff there we're going to use. Had to buy a new torque wrench because my Warren Brown, or Warren Brown, whatever it is, just doesn't go low enough, so I got a new smaller one. Ended up going with a VCM 16 cam over the other one that chewed out of that motor. It is a little bit smaller. I'll just write this down. The old cam was Camtech. There's the specs, I won't go through it too much, but intake duration, exhaust duration, and lift, intake exhaust, lobe center. So I've gone a bit smaller on the VCM cam, VCM 16, it's 233, obviously a little bit smaller, but anyway. 4 thousandths less duration, or 4 degrees I think it might even be, on the intake, 10 less on the exhaust, and then lift, 14 thou less lift on the intake, 10 thou less lift on the exhaust. So all in all, this cam is a little bit small, the new one, but I don't really think it's going to affect the power too much, but hopefully it lasts longer. That Camtech cam is pretty big. He was using the Laty lifters, whereas I've always been a firm believer in the LS7 lifters, which are soaking there. And I don't know if you've watched the video of me pulling that engine apart, you might have noticed that, which startled me in the video. If you watch closely, I was surprised there was no timing chain tensioner in it. So I've got a brand new AC Delco timing chain tensioner, part number, and also this engine's head studded, so I had to get myself some ARP proper lubricant, and also downloaded and printed the specs on them bolts. It took a bit of work to find the exact bolts that I had, but yeah, I got it there. So what I'll do is I'll get set up and pull this engine out, and we'll start sliding some parts back into it. Okay, all unwrapped, and how I left it for storage, just loosely with the timing cover and the sump on. Just threw the head gaskets back on, if you can remember, and all the nuts and washers I just put on so it doesn't get lost. Lifter trays are back in there, so there's a lot of stuff that's just loosely in there that I have to pull apart. I'm not going to show you how to take all this back off, because if you watch my other video pulling this engine apart, it's more than enough information. So I'll just quickly fly through, take all this back apart so we're back down to the raw, and I'll be putting all these nuts and washers maybe in some petrol or some Kero or something to clean all the threads inside the nuts, and the washers have to be perfectly clean before the new ARP assembly lube goes on there and we tighten those head studs down. So throw them in some lube, pull it all apart, and we'll get back into it. All the accessories I had on are off, stacked them on the table out the back here. Do yourself a favour, get yourself plenty of working space to lay stuff out. I just think it makes life a lot easier if you've got plenty of room to lay stuff out. It doesn't go missing, you can lay it out, you can see how it goes. Now, the next step is I want to slide the cam in, but first thing I need to do is put the engine at top dead center, which means that the number one piston needs to be at the very top of its stroke, so to speak. Now, the cylinder arrangement on LS starts front left, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So this being number 1, the piston has to be all the way up, virtually at the top, so you just rotate the engine on the crank bolt until your piston's all the way at the top, and then on your timing chain bottom cog, I don't know if the camera will pick it up, but on this one it has got a number 0 just on that front top tooth there. Oh yeah, you can just see it there. And you can tell, and then your 2 teeth to the left is +2, 2 teeth to the right is -2. So that 0 also indicates top dead center if that's facing straight up. So I've got that 0 straight up, or close enough, and now I can remove the cam retaining plate, just get that chain out of the way for the time being, and get ready to start putting that cam in. Okay, cam retaining plate's off, out of the way. It's ready for a cam to slide into there, so unbox the cam, take it out, dust the box off because we've got to give this a nice clean. It is brand new, but I always get a brand new clean rag, and I use carby or throttle body cleaner. Some people use brake cleaner. Spray it, wipe it, get all the crap off of it, and yeah, it's just a matter of spraying it on, wiping it off, make sure it's nice and clean. I did grab a water pump bolt, put it in the end of the cam, ready to go, so I'm ready to use that for a bit of leverage and wheelie the cam in. So I'll clean this off and we'll get it ready. After I clean it off, I'll be rubbing some of this assembly lube on there. A lot of people just use engine oil, but I think this motor might end up sitting maybe for another month or something. I'm not really sure, but I'd rather just put some assembly lube on there, make sure everything's not too dry, nice and lubed up, ready for the lifters to slide onto there, so there's no metal on metal, everything's protected. So I'll clean it up and I'll rub this assembly lube on all the lobes and all the bearing surfaces, and I'll set you up on the tripod after that and we'll slide it in. Okay, carby clean, cleaned it off, rag, compressed air, blew it off, got the assembly lube on there. I just thought I'd show you, like, this stuff is so sticky, it's not going nowhere. Look at the stringiness. So it looks like good stuff. It'll definitely stay on there if the motor sits for a while. It's not going to run off and get dry, so I'm really happy with that. So I'm going to latex glove, spread it all out, and I'll slide that cam in. You can see that it's just coated in that black sticky stuff. I've got the water pump bolt in the end, so I've got something to leave it with, and try not to put my fingers on the main bearing part of the cam. Try and keep that as lubed as possible, and just gently slide it in. It's definitely not something you want to force and put any scratches on anything. So just take your time. I think this lube, pretty fantastic stuff. It's super slippery, super sticky. It just seems to be great stuff. It is, but you've got to start wheeling it into the back of into that back bearing. This is the hardest one. Gotcha. Just roll it around in there. Feels good. Feels sticky, but rolling around good. Awesome. So now clean up this surface here for the cam retaining plate, and clean the cam retaining plate to slide over. Okay, carby clean. I cleaned off the retaining plate surface, cleaned the retaining plate off with the carby clean and a clean rag. I just thought I'd show you. I just noticed that the bolts for the cam retaining plate have some crap in the thread. Now that would affect torque settings, I feel. So best thing I like to do is I'll just get on my bench grinder and have the wire wheel, and I just wire wheel all the threads off. Any of these bolts that I see that go in that have any sort of crap on the threads will be getting wire wheeled. So I do recommend that too. Any dirty threads, wire wheel them off, do what you need to do. So I'll buzz these 3 bolts, then we'll put them in. Cam retaining plate is ready. The bolts are clean. Everything's clean. Clean the surfaces. Just a matter of lining it up. Get all your bolts started. We might drop into a bit of time lapse here and there when I edit this.
Some time.
This bit here is a Torx 40, just so you know, and plenty of information on the internet for all the tensions on all the bolts, but I'll let you know as I go through. 18 for these. Torx 40. Okay, they're all loosed in, finger tight. I have my torque wrench set to, you can't really see it, but 18 foot-pounds. Make sure that's right. Wait for the click, just to ease up on it, no use racing on it. Slow and steady. Cam is in. Now I'm going to grab the timing chain top cog, so to speak, or top sprocket, clean it up with the carby cleaner, give it a wipe off, and then we'll come back in here and line it up. Okay guys, I'll come clean. I did put the sprocket on and I filmed it, but I have to go back because the timing chain tension of the new one that I got needs to go down in there, and there is not enough room with that oil pump on, so we're going to have to backtrack and get that oil pump off. Now the only thing with that is that's simple enough to pull the oil pump off there, but down in the bottom I have the oil pickup tube on there, so she's rolled over. Going to fly around and take the 10mm bolts out for the sump, quickly get rid of the sump. You've seen it all in my other video, so I'll get rid of the sump, I'll get rid of the windage tray, and I'll get rid of the pickup tube. You've seen it in the other video, and we'll catch back up taking that oil pump off. Sump and oil pickup tube are now off. We've rolled the motor back over, made a bit of a mess, had a tray under it, oil leaking out of it. So now it's the 4 12mm bolts to get the oil pump off. The other thing is too, this nut will have to come off as well, because the oil pump will slide off the end of the nose.
Alright, 4 12mm bolts. Yeah, she's definitely knowing pump.
Now I can slide that tensioner in there. There's enough room to get it in there. Enough room to get rid of that chain for the time being too. We can slide that. I do not know the theory behind there being no tension. I researched the internet and I really honestly could not figure it out. Leave a comment if you've ever heard of that before. Okay, and they're just hand tight. Also 18 foot-pounds. And I checked as well, the oil pump back on will be 18 foot-pounds as well. Now I want to make sure that zero is straight back up and down again, seeing as though I moved it when I undid this nut to get the oil pump off. Put it back on so I can rotate it. Oh, too far. Oh, actually that's pretty close. It's actually very close. Timing chain back up here. Now this is the tensioner. It comes with this pin. When you let that off, it tensions it, so to keep it away, you just push it in and get that pin in there. That'll hold it loose. And slide the chain up in there. Pretty good. We'll get that cam lined up. Rollmaster timing chain top sprocket. Pretty fancy. Cleaned it off with carby cleaner or throttle body cleaner. And before I hang the chain off of it, I actually like to just get the cam sitting in the right spot. So I put the sprocket on with one bolt, at least one bolt. And I'll just rotate, not already sitting there, but just rotate the little zero. Well, on factory timing chains there'll be a little mark like this one. The zero has to line up with the dot. So that cam is sitting in the right spot. So take the bolt back out. And you know you can bring that chain up. Just, sometimes it can be a bit of a muck around, but put your dot at the bottom and try and just get your sprocket on there with the dot still at the bottom. See, I stuffed it up, it's not at the bottom, so I have to jump a few teeth, bit of a fumble, and that's at the bottom. They line up, put a bolt in, shimmy it so it starts. Alright, I'll grab the other two. Just hand tighten these up. 10mm cam sprocket retaining bolts, 26 foot-pounds. Just evenly sneak up on it.
Okay, 26 foot-pounds, nice. Then you can pull your pin off the tensioner. She's nice and
Tight. Harmonic balancer bolt back off. Now you've sorted your cam chain out, your sprockets, your tensioner, it's time to put the oil pump back on. So carburetor cleaner, clean rag, clean the surfaces where the oil pumps sit, around that oil gallery hole. It needs to be nice and clean around the bolt holes so that you can achieve a nice accurate torque setting. I also clean the oil pump bolts so that we can slide this back on. Now it says 18 foot-pounds to tighten this up to. Now while I cleaned off the oil pump surfaces, I did clean off the timing cover surface as well, so it's all been carby cleaned up. The timing cover, cleaned that all up with the carby clean rag, cleaned it all up, wire wheeled all the bolts, made sure the threads were clean, everything's clean, ready to go in. Even cleaned the front seal there, bit of oily stuff in there. I'll end up rubbing just a tiny little bit of the assembly lube just around that seal, so when the balancer slides in, it's got a little bit of lube. All this is all clean, so we'll just slide the timing cover on and just loosely put the bolts in.
Now they're all just finger tight, so that the whole timing case still has a bit of movement, see? And the reason why we leave it loose is because we want this seal to be centered over the harmonic balancer. So if you leave this nice and loose, put your harmonic balancer on, it will help to locate this cover nice and evenly around that seal, if you know what I mean. So leave it nice and loose, and we'll prep the harmonic balancer ready to put on. Now I've cleaned up the harmonic balancer. This is definitely not a standard one. It's actually got a keyway in it, even though an LS crank doesn't have a keyway. It's got timing marks. All that doesn't really matter. I'm going to try and make it line up zero anyway, just for the sake of it. So I used the Carby Clean, cleaned all the surface that the seal rides on, cleaned the nose of the crank, cleaned the bolt, the washer, made sure there's no stuff, no dirt, no nothing on anything. Now I've got a heat gun there, because this pulley is like an interference fit, it's quite tight, and they actually want 250 foot-pounds on that bolt, and that's mainly so that you know that that goes all the way home. Now a trick to make that go on a lot easier and go all the way home is to heat it. Now I don't have a torch, and torch really leaves soot, so I like to use my heat gun, let it sit there for 5-10 minutes, get hot, and then I also put a tiny bit of WD-40 on the shaft, and there's assembly lube inside the seal there, so that that harmonic balancer will just push straight in. I've got the rattle gun ready to go with the 12.27mm to tighten that special ARP bolt. So everything's laid out. As soon as it's hot, I should be able to slide that straight on and it'll go straight home. Righty. Some warm. I'm going to try and line that top dead centre up, even though there's no keyway. It'll just be good in the future. Tight. Wash it for a bit. You can give it another few ugga-duggas and that should be sweet. She's solid. The timing cover's still loose, so it can find its own centre around that seal. But what I like to do before I tighten that up and torque that up is actually put the sump on, and I'll show you why. I'll flip it all over. And okay, the motor rolled over. You can see the timing case where it would line up with the sump surface. Now if you went and tightened all these up before the sump, there's a possibility it could be up or down and there'd been a step there. So I like to leave that loose, prep the sump surface, prep the sump gasket, sump, all clean it all up, ready to put the sump on, and we'll actually tension the sump down first, put the 2 bolts through the sump into the front timing case before we torque the timing case on the front. Just make so that those 2 points there are nice and level and lined up, and it won't leak. Now I did have that windage tray off to show you in the last video how I saw the damaged lifter, so I have to re-torque all them. 18 foot-pounds, 13mm. So I'll torque them down, then I have to put the pickup tube back in, the oil pump pickup tube. So we'll get amongst that before we get that sump on. Okay, oil pickup tube goes down in here, and you've got to make sure that you have that O-ring in there. If it's not in there, you have to make sure that it's on, rolled over on your oil pickup. So I'm going to clean these up and get them in. Now that oil pickup tube goes in there, and there's that one little bolt that goes in there. It's probably the only bolt on these engines that I really freak out about. So I'll put a bit of Loctite on that, because all hell would probably break loose if that dropped out. Low oil pressure, the whole thing would get destroyed, so a little bit of Loctite on that bolt. Obviously I clean that surface with the Carby Clean, clean the thread out with Carby Clean too, and clean my bolt so I'm ready to go for some Loctite. Also cleaned this flange with the Carby Clean, just make sure nothing's in the way. No little passages for the oil to sneak out. Sneak that in, make sure she's up nice. See that bit of Loctite on there. Okay, once again, 18 foot-pounds, 18 foot-pounds. Pan's cleaned out, gasket surface, gasket's clean, this gasket surface is clean. So now in these four corners we have to put a little bit of gasket maker, bit of Permatex Ultra Grey, does the job. And it's just where these surfaces meet. Drop the gasket on. And of course the pan. I also cleaned all the bolts.
Start them all beforehand.
Okay, all the bolts down the sides, the bigger bolts, and in the front cover here will all be 18 foot-pounds. Then they call for these small ones in the back here to be like 106 inch-pounds, so not very tight for the back ones. So I'll go through and do all the side ones first, leave the front ones here loose, get the sides torqued down. Then I know that the pan becomes like a beam, and then I can tighten the front of the cover down to the pan as well. I'll snip the front ones up just a little bit to make sure that that plate's nice and back. Only just a little bit tight, just so I know that the cover's most of the way back. Okay, I'm going to just get a rag and clean all the oily residue off, tidy it up a bit, roll it over, and then we can tighten the timing cover. Front cover bolts, front timing cover bolts, 18 foot-pounds. Next thing we'll do, or I'll do, is clean all the threads, clean all the surfaces fairly well. I really need to clean all the threads, so I'll just hold a rag underneath here, spray carby clean all the threads. I'm going to get a fresh rag, wipe out all the bores, tidy all this surface up where all the oil's run down from the motor being upside down, and we'll look at putting the lifters in. Now the lifters have been soaking in bags, as I said earlier. So, and there's all the nuts off the studs been soaking in petrol, and you can see the petrol's gone from yellow to black, so it's definitely cleaning. So I won't bore you with how I clean this, just wiping surfaces, but I'll just do one to show. Just on the thread, I'll just pretty much hold a rag underneath it, just blast it, give it a rub, make sure they're super clean. So I'll go through and do all them, rub everything down, give it a nice clean up, and we'll catch back up doing the lifters. Righto guys, it's the next morning. Early last night it started belting rain here, so it's pointless trying to make any more videos. The sound off the top of this shed was unbelievable. I reckon we got over 100 mil in half an hour. It was flogging down. But anyway, I'd still worked away and got some cleaning done. Like I said, I got all the surfaces cleaned up and cleaned up under the engine. There's oil everywhere. Tidied all that up. Also ended up taking one of these nuts and just winding them down every single thread to make sure all the threads are really clean. Cleaned all that up. Got all the nuts and washers laid out, and I actually got a little toothbrush in the petrol and give them all a bit of a scrub, make sure they're all perfectly clean, they're all dry. Because we're getting ready to get the heads on soon this morning. Also carby cleaned and wiped out all the lifter buckets ready for this morning, and fully cleaned all the head gaskets, all the crap off the head gaskets. We are going to reuse them. This engine probably only did 2,000 kilometres maybe, so hopefully we get away with reusing them. We will spray them with copper gasket spray. Wiped all the bores out, so we're ready to pop these lifters in. So I'll get you set up on the tripod and we'll prep the lifters. Okay, I'm ready to slide the lifters down into the lifter bores. I get a little bit of assembly lube, put on the roller. They've all been soaking in bags. I think I've already told you, but I like putting them in bags because you can move them all around and give the lifter a bit of a pump, push the air out. It's actually the easiest way to get all the air out of your lifters. Makes a bit of a mess. But yeah, we'll go through and slide these lifters in. You can see, nicely coated in oil. There is a little oiling hole there in the side. I'm not sure if you can see it. Just down in here. But it doesn't matter. They say it doesn't matter, but I just think it's not that much effort to make them all the same. So I'll put a tiny drop on the roller and a little bit on the bore. That shit is so sticky. That stuff is so sticky. Give it a bit of a rub. And then locate the hole, which is there. And the flat spots will be up and down. That way the roller is up and down, so the flat goes to the top. And I just slide it in. Easy. You go through and put them all in. Okay, I've got 4 in, so now I can take the lifter bucket and simply slide over the head of the lifters. Give them a bit of a shake like that. You can see they all line up. And just the nut in there finger tight, so I'll go through there, slide the rest. Okay, while the lifters are in, I'll put all the oil holes forward so they all match. When the trays go in, you can't really get them wrong because you can see the little indent in the block here, and only one side has that on the trays, so really the trays can only go in one way. Okay, torque up the lifter trays. 106 inch-pounds is what it says on the guide, and that converts to 8.5, 8.8 foot-pounds, which is not very tight. More than likely not tight because it's just plastic. We also get our glove and just rub this oil into the bores. I'll even grab some more. This is just the bag that the lifters were sitting in. This engine's probably still going to be sitting for another, hopefully not that long, but maybe another month before it started. I'm just rotating the engine over now, just so I can get the ones that are down up. Okay, the head surfaces are perfectly clean. Carby clean, clean rag, make sure there's no oily residue around the head surface at all. I'll pull out one of the heads to get started, and I'll just note that because it's head studded, all of where the washers for the head studs sit have to be cleaned from oil too, because you want that washer to grip the head, and then you put the lube on the bottom of the nut so the nut slides on the washer. You don't actually want your washers to spin while you tighten them up. So that's also the head studs that come through here. So I have to get in there. I'm just going to put a rag on the end of my finger or on the end of a little screwdriver and carby clean and clean every single one of them, so that once the head goes on, the stud will be poking through. That'll be clean. I'll be able to drop the perfectly clean washer on there, and then the nut with a little bit of ARP lube will go on top of that, and that will give us accurate torque readings for tightening these heads down. The head's all clean, nice clean surface, ready to go on. All the what do you call it, maybe head stud pads for the nuts and the washers, they're all clean, and I've got the head gasket up ready to spray. And I always give them a coat with this copper spray gasket. And there's something about this stuff. Permatex as well. I try and stay with Permatex. It just seems to help seal, I think. I know on the tonner, I use standard head gaskets with standard head bolts and this stuff, and it seems to be sealing alright. And I've done a couple other engines and they still seem to be heading alright. So I'll stick with it. I've had comments before in previous videos about that, but we'll go with it. These have all been cleaned off. And it's just a matter of dusting it off. Obviously I've been shaking this can for a fair while. Oh. Just give her a dust. Maybe it didn't clean it up. Alright, we're back. Bit of carby clean, compressed air down that nozzle. And I think we can. Okay. take 3 after a quick trip down to the parts store. New can of Permatex. Just give it a nice even coat. Don't have to go too ridiculous. Yeah, it's going all over the SS. I might actually move and spray this somewhere else so it's not going all over my car. Okay, while I was waiting for that copper spray to tack off, just so it's tacky, I did clean up the other head, or started to clean up the other head, and this head gasket and head on the driver's side, right hand side of the motor is ready to go on. So I'll get you set up. Says front, the front of the gasket, and you can see just a nice even coat both sides. There's something about this stuff. Good stuff. Now all that's clean, obviously we've been through that. The bottom of the head's very clean. Gasket on. Head on. Alright. Now I've got to work my way through for the washers and slide all the washers in. All the bottoms there have all been cleaned so that the contact surface between the washer and the head is clean. There's no oil, so that will prevent the washer from spinning. So I'll go through and I'll put all the washers on. Okay, about to slide those washers on, I'll just show you. These washers are the same both sides. You can get some ARP studs that have a knurling or a print on one side that helps with the grip on the head surface. These ones don't, so keep an eye out for that if you get different ones. Now for the nuts, little 12-point 2000 series nuts, proper ARP lube. You want to lube this surface of the nut so there's no restriction on the top of that washer when it spins, so it spins nice and freely and you get a nice accurate torque reading. I also just put a little drop of this lube, just a little bit on the thread as well. Even though those threads are perfectly clean, maybe just a little bit of lube on there so that the nut has no restriction as well. Just smear a bit on there. And then I'll just put some inside the nut. Just a matter of getting it on. Okay. All the nuts, washers are on. Ended up finding that putting the nut just in the end of an extension, set it in there, put some lube on it, then you can just slide it on there and start it is definitely the easiest way. Now it's time to start torquing. I've got the ARP instructions. First pass through is 25 foot-pounds, and then it gives you the pattern in which to tighten it all up. Really good instructions, you can't go wrong really. So I'll follow the instructions and we'll start torquing the head down. Okay, tighten nuts 1 through 10, 25, so I've done that. Second step, 50 foot-pounds, 1 through 10 again. So I've matter of changing this up from 25 foot-pounds up to 50. Just a matter of loosening this. See if I can do it through the camera. And go up to 50, which is halfway between 40 and 60. Tighten it back down, 50, and go again.
Okay. Step 3. Tighten nuts 1 through 10 to 80 foot-pounds. Oh. Alright. Right. Yo. Yeah, I'm going.
Now we're up to, that was hard and tight, I will say. Holy hell, I'm sweating after doing that up. Shining like crazy. Now I've got to go across the top little ones just to 28 foot-pounds, which is stuff all.
Work your way out.
both heads torqued down. Now the next thing I want to do is check the lifter preload. Now that's got a lot to do with the length of your push rod. Now this engine did chew a couple of lifters with the old cam and the old lifters that were in it. I don't exactly know why. It could have been a number of things, but one of the things I definitely want to rule out is lifter preload. There's a possibility that these push rods will be too long. So I'm going to check it, and I'll take you through how I check that. I'll grab the rockers, throw the rockers on finger tight, and then we'll go through how to check for it. Okay, it did have trend push rods in it. There's the length. I think they're 7.350. I don't know about lengths off by heart. Push it in and gently push the lifter down if the lifter's up in the tray, which it's not. They're nice and down. The one thing you want to do on the one that you're checking is rotate the engine so they're sitting at the bottom. And we've got compression because we've got spark plugs in there. Okay, the spark plugs are out. I just want you to see what I mean. I turn the motor over until the push rods are all the way down. That means it's on the base circle of the cam, which is where you want to make your adjustment. You can see them there. I don't know if you can see, but this one's sitting higher than that, which would indicate that this exhaust valve on the cam is actually open just a little bit, or wants to open the valve a little bit. It's up on the exhaust lobe a little bit. Sorry, the intake valve. So you can see as I roll it around, that push rod is dropping. And you can see that when you get to the bottom, they don't move, no matter backwards or forwards, they're not moving. That means it's on the base circle of the cam. And that's where we make our adjustment, or make our measurement. Put them all in there. I'll just put a couple of these finger tight this end. This end here doesn't really matter at the moment. We're just concentrating on this one cylinder. Push them down. Now what we want to do is push them down until this bolt is just snug and there's no movement between the push rod and the valve, top of the valve and the push rod. There'd be no rocking, it's just touching. Okay, they're both set 0 lash. So now the spec should be 3/4 to 1.5 turns until the rocker nips its way down. So that's not turning it, I'm just turning the spanner straight up and rotate. That's half, 3/4, 1 turn. That's tight. 1 turn exactly. So that is on the intake valve, 1 turn, so that push rod length is perfect. Now exhaust, 1/4, half, 3/4, 1, just past 1, 1 1/4. So that is also within spec, 3/4 to 1.5. You know, that's definitely the right length push rod. So I will go ahead and use those push rods. What I am going to do is loosen them all off, but I'll get all the push rods and I'll blast some carby clean and some compressed air down through there, make sure there's no blockages up the oil passage, and get them all cleaned up. Each push rod I'm going to put in, I'll put a bit of my assembly lube on each end One where it sits inside the lifter, on the top of the lifter, and one where it will hit the rocker. Okay, all the push rods are in, lubed up, cleaned up. I'm going to run a tiny little drop of assembly lube on top of each valve and then throw the rockers in.
This is probably a bit excessive, but why not?
And you can drop the rockers in.
Start them all off.
And just make sure that the push rod is seated into the cup of the rocker nicely, not sitting in there all monged up. Make sure they're all sitting in there good. And then we can just pinch them all down by hand. After you get them all down by hand, with the rockers on the base circle of the cam, so this side of the rocker has to be all the way down. You rotate the engine until this side, the pushrod side, is all the way down, so you know that the lifter is on the base circle of the cam. Then you tighten it down to 22 foot-pounds. Now I'm not going to torque these down because I don't want to preload these lifters, because it might be another month, say, until I actually fire this up. So I don't want this valve spring pressure pushing on my lifter that has never been pumped up properly with an oil pump before to sit there preloaded for that long when they're brand new. So I'm going to leave them all just snugged up, finger tight, and then before I put the engine in, or just before I start it, I'll pull the rocker covers back off and I will torque them down. So they'll be finger tight for now. I won't forget, and I'll get all the other side on finger tight, and then we'll continue on intake manifold, rocker covers, so on. Okay, next will be the rocker covers. I'm only doing them up finger tight, but if you were doing them for the final time, they'd be 8.8 foot-pounds or 8.5 foot-pounds, only very light. In the spec it says 106 inch-pounds, so that converts to 8.8. So there's 4 8mm bolts. Do them up by hand, then torque them up. You can hear it's raining here, so I do apologise for that. I've been through, done a fair bit of cleaning up. Last person who put this engine together put Celastic around the intake manifold. I truly do not know why. They're an O-ring. O-rings protrude quite well. I'll show you that in a sec. I had to go through there, scrape it all off my thumbnail. Didn't want to use a razor blade and score the alley heads. Use the vac. Made sure there's no silicone in the ports. Cleaned it all up. Cleaned all the valley cover. Made sure there's no crap around there, so that's all real clean. Also cleaned up the front where the water pump bolt's on, because we'll put that on as well. Made sure there was no... They put Celastic there too. Once again, not really needed. Must have been a bit of an old school fella putting it together. So cleaned up all the block, all the heads in the block. Intake manifold, you can see the green O-rings. And it's funny, the Celastic that was on the head, there wasn't a single drop of Celastic on the head. On the intake manifold, it's like it didn't stick to the plastic. So that's really convenient. All those O-rings look really good, ready to go. Had to take the fuel rail out because the fuel rail has to be out to access these bolts, they're that big. Water pump, the gaskets are still silicone to the water pump, so I cleaned up this side of the gasket, and I probably will put a tiny smear of grey stuff on there, grey silicone. So yeah, we're all cleaned up, ready to put the intake manifold, water pump up. Also, can't forget the steam vents, cleaned them up. Made sure I had all the O-rings. Surprisingly, I haven't lost anything yet, which is really good. So yeah, we'll get set up. Definitely start them all off before you go tightening any single one down, that's for sure. Just in case you have to vibrate it a little bit just to get your bolt started. Okay, intake manifold's on. My torque wrench is too heavy, so I just go down to what feels tight.
Pretty aluminium and plastic, just so soft.
Now throw the little steam pipe vent in from the front of the head. See the little vents in the top of the heads just to let steam out, the water. And they all have little black O-rings in there. You got to make sure they're in there, otherwise they will leak. Just tighten them up. Tighten the front ones up. Alright, I got the silicone on the water pump. Just a little smear around those ports. Now we can just slide that water pump on, get the bolt started. .22 foot-pound on the water pump, on both the 13 mils and the 10 mils. Okay. The next thing we'll do is drop our fuel rail back in. Now just to keep the O-rings in the injectors nice and lubed up, I like to just put a drop WD-40 in where the O-rings are going to slide in.
Yeah, a bit of WD-40 down this cylinder will not hurt at all.
Just a matter of lining up all the injectors in the holes. And they just drop straight in with a bit of WD-40. This is custom fuel rails with different injectors, so they've got the custom spacers that sit under the posts. We'll slide them in, and no need to over tighten these. Just down until they bottom out, until they tighten up. Doesn't have to be overly tight, they just hold the injectors down, it's not a huge amount of pressure on them. Okay, it's starting to look like an engine. Looks pretty good. Got a lot of the accessories to go on now. Power steering pump with the reservoir bracket, air conditioner bracket, air conditioner compressor, that's the power steering bracket, alternator, dipstick. I won't go through these too fine tooth. I'll just set these up, get a bit of time lapse happening, and we'll just get through it. I might just add, at this point, this engine starts getting pretty heavy. So I like to put a jack stand under the front of it. This helps take the weight. it's pretty well done for now. Take you for a look around it. Everything's on there. I've just temporarily put the coil packs on there finger tight, just to get them up off the table. Yeah, a bit of a look around it. Definitely a lot closer to going back into the SS. Now there's probably a bit more to go on there. I could have put the wiring loom on there, but I don't actually have it. It's getting modified because obviously it's turbo 400 going into the SS, and this was originally a 4L65 automatic, so there's a big electric plug with all the electric crap. So I've got an auto electrician going through the loom, cutting it all back, putting the right wires in for a B&M shifter so the reverse lights and the neutral safety work. Also changing the looms to get rid of the MAF sensor and to put an air temp sensor in it. So he's sorting all that out. I'm still waiting for that. I do have turbo 400 there ready to go. I have a flex plate, so coming up soon. We're going to throw the engine and the gearbox turbo 400 into the car, wire it all up, put the standard exhaust manifolds back on. Still need to get some engine mounts for it too. I didn't put them on yet because I don't have any. And this car's still got an exhaust system under it, just a standard style exhaust. So I'm actually going to put this into the SS, aspirated, make sure everything runs fine, you know, get the tail shaft made for the turbo 400, get all that sorted out. Then I'll go on to installing the turbo kit on top of that after it's actually running and driving aspirated. So that's plenty to look forward to. This video has probably dragged on a little bit boring watching an engine go together, but maybe some of you found it helpful. You could like it for me, subscribe, bell if you want to get notified every time I bring out a video. Next coming up will be another episode for the tonner to look out for. We're going to do a bit of work to that while we wait for parts for the SS. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video today, and